And we're live. Welcome to Don't Be Coy. I'm your host, Unkle Lew. And today I have the honor, pleasure, and the utmost appreciation to have with me today Mr. Victor Savcenco. Victor, thank you for being on the show. How are you doing this morning?
Doing really good. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Oh, that sounds good, man. How was your previous week?
It was a pretty good week. I got to go to Colorado and ski.
Oh, really? I didn't know you were a skier.
Yeah.
How long did you stay up there? Just a few days or what?
Flew out on Monday and came back on Friday.
Oh, okay. That sounds good. Well, for the people at home, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name's Victor Savcenco, and do you want me to go into the whole story of how I ended up here, or just a
Yeah, man. Whatever.
introduction?
Yeah, whatever you would like to share. It all sounds good.
All right. Well, I was born and raised in Moldova, Eastern Europe, and lived there for the first 16 years of my life. This year, I'm turning 32, which makes it half my life I've spent here in America. The journey started when my best friend's parents decided to send him off to America as an exchange student. And then as soon as I heard that my best friend's leaving and going so far away in this beautiful adventure, I had to beg my parents to allow me to go as well. And after long consideration, my father gave me one condition. He said that if you go, you have to learn the language, you have to try to go to university, you have to try to stay there. If you could do all that, I'm giving you a green light to go. And at 16, I was like, sure thing, Father. Yeah, of course, I can do that. I mean, as it turns out, I kept that promise.
Yeah. No, that's what's up.
Yeah. So me and my friend both applied for that exchange student program. The way it works, it's actually kind of fun. You pass some English tests. Once you qualify, they upload some pictures of yours on an online profile. You write a little letter about yourself, saying what you like, a little bit about yourself, and then families all over America can browse those profiles and pick out the students that they like.
Yeah.
So I got randomly picked by a family from Georgia State, like an hour north of Atlanta. So I went to high school there. We graduated, and after that, I applied for college in California. And then my best friend got picked by a family in Olympia, Washington. So we were living across the country from each other. We didn't see each other that year at all. But at least we were experiencing the same thing together.
Yeah.
For college, we got together, became roommates, and moved out to California. And 5 years later, both of us graduated. He ended up moving to Minnesota, and I got a one-way ticket to Hawaii and gave myself 2 weeks to find a job. And I found one right away.
Yeah.
And stayed there for the next 5 years.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you for sharing that, man. That's kind of an interesting story. I like how, your whole journey around just for how you started here just began where it's like, oh, my best friend's leaving. I got to go with him. And then you getting here and then realizing that y'all are like literally two opposite ends of the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So like, I'm curious, like, you mentioned this story around like how you got here and things of that nature. And I think that it's really interesting, like, to even have that kind of courage at a youthful age to say like, hey, my best friend is leaving, and like, yeah, you're young and things of that nature. But like I'm sure you realized that America was far away because you realized how far your friend was leaving, right? And so like to say at the ripe age of 16, I'm going to leave my family and I'm going to go across the world and just start my whole life together. What was that like for you?
I definitely didn't think it through.
Yeah.
So I think I have this personality trait that tends to romanticize a lot of things. So when I have a vision or a dream inside my mind, it seems so perfect. And then I'm like, okay, what's stopping me? Let's execute. and then I do that, and then I find out everything else that is mixed into that you have to overcome, figure out, feel, get over, and learn. And so I definitely didn't know how it was going to be.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I had this beautiful vision, this dream of going to high school in America, and maybe even staying there and building a life. And I mean, for us in Eastern Europe, America is like a dream. And so many movies that I've seen, that's kind of what I was going after. So it wasn't a hard choice. And I was very fortunate to have my family be able and capable to support that.
Yeah.
Because, the country that I come from is far from perfect. So it's a very economically challenged country. It's historically, it's been on crossroads of so many different wars and crises. And so has a very turbulent history. And a lot of people do move away.
Yeah.
So it's another very common thing. Like my friends have siblings, older siblings that have moved away. Everybody knows a lot of people that moved away. So a notion of moving away yourself is kind of something that everybody's prepared for. Like currently, all of my best friends, all 7 of them, they have all moved away. They all live in different countries now.
Yeah.
So when I visit my family back home, none of my closest friends are there.
No, that makes sense. Especially like, just even here, just thinking about like my life here in America. Like I grew up in Mississippi. And so like a lot of the people that I grew up with, they don't even live in Mississippi anymore. They might live in like other southern states, but like majority of the time they're not in the state of Mississippi or even in the same city. So like there's that benefit to it where it's just like you go home and you're like, oh, okay, no one's here. But at the same time, like you have all these different places that you can travel to and like not only visit your friends, but visit the experiences that they're creating. So it's just like, I always appreciate that component to it.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, man. So like, I want to touch on a little bit here as far as you saying that you were like this visionary person and like, talking about like how America was kind of like a dream or is like a dream for living in like Eastern Europe. When you moved here, was that dream like a reality or like what was the experience compared to like the vision that you had inside your head?
In the very beginning, it was pretty much a reality. I mean, it takes time as you get to know it more closely, more thoroughly. But yeah, in the beginning, I was driving from the airport to my host family's house. I was seeing Atlanta downtown, skyscrapers for the first time. I was seeing beautiful neighborhoods with perfect lawns and mailboxes. And the first day I went to school, I had to take the yellow bus. That thing, which might seem very normal to everyone else, was like being part of a movie.
Oh, man. No, that's funny. I love that because it's like, for a lot of people who grow up here or just whatever environment they come from, they're used to just that. And so it becomes not necessarily people take it for granted, but they become accustomed to it. So like going and getting a perspective from an individual who comes from literally a different part of the world, it's like, what? The yellow bus is like, what's exciting to you?
That was very exciting. Yeah.
I know like growing up, we call them like cheese wagons and stuff. Like even for myself, like turning the age of 16 is also the same age that we get our driver's license. So it's like, as soon as you turn 16, you're not riding the school bus anymore. And if you're riding the school bus your senior year of high school, you're like lame or something like that.
Well, I didn't get my license till I was like 18. And if I stayed home, I probably wouldn't get it until I was like 25.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I have some friends who live in like Eastern Europe and stuff. And even like people who grow up in cities here, like they don't get their license till they're like older because what for? The place that they live is in such proximity that they can easily like get to places. But then there's also this sense of like community where things are kind of just shared anyway. So it's like if a family has one vehicle, it's like, well, what's it called? I don't necessarily need it because it's just like I can walk to this place or that place. And then if I ever need something, I could just ask somebody and then do it myself or like that. So that makes a lot of sense for me, man. Kind of talking a little bit more as far as this visionary component, I think it makes a lot of sense for the things that I know about you and like would like to talk with you a little bit more on the podcast today. Is that like even from the first time I met you, like just working at the taco tainer and like realizing that you were the owner and things of that nature, and then having more conversations with you, I noticed that you're this kind of life passion pursuer, and like you have this component of like owning your own narrative. You know, like you mentioned beforehand, you're originally from Moldova. You've had all these different varying experiences. I think that one of the things that's really interesting for you is that you own this narrative that you have. And so like whenever you went to college, what was, I guess you could say, the passion or the narrative that you were trying to write whenever you went to school and get your undergraduate degree?
That's a really good question. And I might not have a good answer to that because I don't think I was thinking about that back then.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing that my father told me, he said that once you graduate, you can never go back and work with me. So consider going home not an option.
Yeah.
So I was always trying to figure out what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do with my life?
Mm-hmm.
So I kept looking for signs and clues, and of course the degree that I chose to go after was exactly what my father did. So I was really trying to, yeah. So I don't think in college I figured it out. I just kept exploring. What really changed that perspective for me is when I went to Hawaii after I graduated and found a job. There was a major real estate company opening up their first office in Honolulu,
Mm-hmm.
and I got hired as their office manager.
Mm-hmm.
And being around realtors and seeing independent contractors and the way they work, their work-life balance, their lifestyle, that was something that opened my eyes. I realized that you do not have to have a classical career path choice. There's other things you could do with your life.
Yeah.
And then through realtors, I also realized that there's so many other industries that are built around that you could have freedom and not be tied to a set schedule, and you could be an independent contractor yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I realized, oh, that thing I love, that freedom I love, I want to do. I want to make that work for me. So I worked for that office for some time, and eventually I started doing graphic design.
Mm-hmm.
So that same office hired me as their marketing director years later, but I was an independent contractor now.
Mm-hmm.
So I had my own little company. I was providing services. I was able to get more clients. I was able to travel back home and be with my family and have a job that I was able to do. I had to work at night, but
Yeah.
still, that freedom felt really good. So I think that freedom is what I guess infected me with this desire to keep exploring things that I could do on my own for myself and run it by myself.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Was it challenging to make that kind of pivot towards becoming an independent contractor and like learning graphic design, or was that something that you naturally had a talent towards? And so like when it came to proposing your idea to the same real estate company that you were working for, they were like, oh yeah, sure, like obviously you can do that.
So graphic design, I'm self-taught, and I've been doing that since I was young.
Oh,
So
wow.
I would be sitting in school in like fifth grade.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be drawing logos, or from my dad's job, I would copy all the different partners' logos. I would hand draw that, so I liked it. When I had a computer, I started exploring all the different applications and software on a computer and how to create and manipulate graphics. So I've been doing that since I was a kid, and I did it for fun. That was my hobby. That's how I liked passing time. So when I was working in that office, it just kind of naturally transitioned into that because people would be like, oh, I'm looking for somebody to do this for me. And I was like, by the way, I could do that. So I'd stay after work and
Yeah.
do some other side projects. And I realized that I like doing that even more than office manager duties.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think that, you know, that's very interesting that like you, as you mentioned, like you were self-taught with graphic design. It was something that even at your youth, you realized that you had a knack for. And then so whenever you had the opportunity to kind of like build something for it, it fits really into as far as this whole aspect of like being a visionary person and that vision of freedom. Like what is more free than doing something that you love and something that you really enjoy, and making money from it and being able to make a living from it, as well. So like what was that moment where you decided to go independent and was saying, okay, my time is done being a project manager and I'm just going to do, the graphic designing full time?
It was, I would say it was gradual. But also, since I was the first person that got hired for that company, I did get to know the owners of the company pretty closely. And they were very wise people. And there was one thing they told me that that stuck with me, I think, up until now. And I think through that lens constantly. So if you're not building your own business, you're helping somebody else build theirs. So, and then I was like, oh, I have to start my own business. I never looked at it that way.
Yeah.
It's like doing graphic design, it's not really starting a business, but in a sense, it is.
Yeah.
So they made it feel official for me. They were like, okay, open your company. They gave me a layout of what to do, where to get started. And then when I did that, I was like, oh, wow, I have an operation. I'm sending invoices. I'm getting clients. So I don't think it happened in one day. It was just a gradual thing.
Yeah.
And I was just picking up projects here and there on the side. And when I felt confident that I can survive off of that, I moved into it full time.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. So like, as I figured it would be like a gradual shift. Nothing's like a light switch, right? Like it's not like you just turn something on and it instantly becomes that. But like at the same time, I think that as a part of the gradual shift into it, like when or did you ever realize that you were utilizing some of the skill sets that you had as an office manager? Because I'm sure like as far as just project management, organization, just the communication skills that comes with being an office manager, was really beneficial in like building your own business essentially, because you have to be relatively organized whenever you're owning your own business. And so like, is that something that you were paying attention to, like taking in from memory all the other experiences that you had and like how you're going to apply it to this new endeavor that you're going to do? So like, I guess the best way to kind of ask that question is it's just like, how did you as an individual leverage the skills that you've had, not only from being an office manager, but then also the experiences that you learned, whether it was in college, high school, or even working for your dad, to get to this point where it's like, I can use these things as building blocks to set up my own freedom of creating a graphic design company?
Yeah, of course. I think for the most part, it was just the connections and interactions I had with the multitude of realtors. And so that probably was the most helpful part. And as far as organization, I did model everything off of what I was seeing around me, because everybody was working on their own brand, their own identity, their own organizing their work life schedule. So I was looking around and getting ideas from. There was in the beginning there was like 200 agents working at that company. When I was leaving, there was almost 400. So there was lots of people I was around, and everybody was doing that same independent thing. So there was a lot of people that I was modeling after.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot.
But what really helped me was just making connections and friends, having that personal tie to everyone.
I think that that's very important. Like, you know, we realize it just like in our own social lives around like the importance of community and like how having a community can help build us up as an individual. Because as you even mentioned, like it was the mentorship or the guidance that you received from the owners of the real estate company that inspired you. It was like, oh, it's just, if you want to be free, you have to you're either one, building your own business, or two, helping someone build their own. And so it's just like that kind of insight helped you grow as an individual and made you make that pivot. So I think that that's really interesting, because it's like, one of the things that I remember us talking about earlier was this glass house that you built. And, that's a whole different other pivot, right? Like building a Airbnb glass house in the middle of the jungle in Hawaii totally sounds like a beautiful experience. But like, what made you decide to make that pivot into that as well? Given that you already have the experience of saying like, hey, I was previously an office manager, already had my own business, but like there was more. So like, was there an opportunity that you just saw it and then the vision came, or is it part of a larger vision that you're trying to create?
I think for me, it was exploring all the different ways that you could work for yourself. So when I was doing graphic design, I was also little by little picking up other projects on the side. Like I eventually started teaching technology and marketing classes, and I would fly around the islands and hold lectures for realtors. So that was another side project I did. Then eventually so if I had to go to university all over again, I would have went for architecture. I would have loved to be an architect. So I've always had an admiration for the engineering and construction, and I always wanted to build something. And so I designed this glass pyramid house, and I built a model out of PVC pipes. And I was just nurturing in that project and perfecting it in my head. And then eventually, when I came across this land on Big Island, which was, I think the price was the most determining factor. It was $9,000 for a plot of wild jungle. I was like, I can do that. I can work with that. So I,
Yeah.
so I got that land, and that was my canvas. And then I worked with engineers to actually put that pyramid together. And then it got shipped to me in a shipping container. I picked it up at the port, brought it to the property, and slowly started just clearing out the lot and doing all the electrical work and rain catchment system, solar power system, putting the pyramid together, building a rock outdoor shower, and landscaping. And then once I created that perfect world inside that jungle, I lived there for a bit, and then I rented it out on Airbnb and did that for a few years.
Yeah.
So that was another thing that I figured out, that if I do it by myself, I can afford it, and it can be an income opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think that was my plus. It was something I really enjoyed doing from the start of designing it to actually building it by myself. I loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
So the concept of enjoying the process was very important for me.
Yeah. I'm starting to see this kind of pattern here where you talk about like this aspect of freedom and like this aspect of being a visionary and like seeing the dream and like living in that dream that you've created. But like, it's never as if like your dreams are ever deferred, or even like the skills that you've built, you just push them to the wayside. Because even as you mentioned of being like an office manager, like, yeah, I'm no longer office manager anymore working with this real estate company, but yet and still I'm going around and flying and created a whole different income from that, or a separate business where I'm, how do you say, like training different other realtor companies, giving them the insights that I've learned, and then also doing the graphic design and like creating a whole business for that. And then finally, as we're talking now, as far as this whole visionary experience for living in the jungle, like I'm very curious around like what inspired that vision for that, because I think that we all try to create our own little oasis, right? Where it's just like, whether it's in the country of the South, where it's in the jungle of like an exotic island or something of that nature, we all have something that we really and truthfully want to be able to see and do. And so like for you, like, what inspired that vision to say like, yeah, this is a great opportunity and I can do it, but like there has to be a little bit more to push you to actually start doing it.
I think it's probably going to tie in together with what brought me out here in the first place is that I romanticize everything inside my head too much.
Yeah.
And I think that's what drives me. I guess it all starts with understanding yourself. Our problem is that we think that we can be anyone if we just put our minds to it. And when that is true to a degree, you do have to understand what you're working with. You have to understand yourself and assess yourself. Be realistic with your own personal capabilities. So I think that probably should be the starting point. And there's ways of doing that. You could ask yourself, what do you feel like doing, and so that it makes time fly by. You could do the 16 personalities test and give honest answers. Usually people love lying to themselves. And some live long, sad lives, perpetually deceiving their own selves and wondering why they still feel empty inside at the end of it. It's a natural process. At times, it's not even people's fault. They grew up that way. They weren't allowed to be themselves. So there was pressure, expectations, or simply a lack of options or inspiration. So they had to settle for the best thing that was available to them at the time. Humans are complex, but there's ways that you could assess yourself. You should know who you really are. Most people wrongfully identify with their thoughts and feelings, but I think a great place for anyone to start would be the Japanese concept of ikigai. And I'm not going to go into it too deeply, but it's something that anyone could look up. Japanese concept ikigai.
How do you spell that?
It's IKIGAI.
Okay.
And that's something that could help you figure out your purpose as far as not really your life's mission, but what can you do in life that will make you money, make you feel fulfilled, and give you a sense of purpose. So it's, I think that would be a great start for everyone. And I wish sometimes, I wish somebody would have told me that when I was younger, because I probably learned that when I was like, I don't know, 25, 26. Imagine if somebody had that tool at their disposal when they were 16, 15, when their brain was just forming, how different that life would be.
Yeah, no, I think that that's very important because it's like, you know, I know so many people who have jobs that they're good at and they enjoy it, you know, but like, as far as like knowing their why, that concept of ikigai, as you mentioned, is kind of like the same concept that I'm hearing a lot of nowadays as far as knowing your why. And so like Simon Sinek, over probably 10 years ago, wrote this book called Start With Why, which is basically a concept of understanding like it goes and looking at businesses and why they're so successful and like not necessarily selling a product, but selling a mission. And so like what I've realized is like now, even with my life, whether it's the organizations that I work for, the people that I interact with, like I always start with that why. It's like, why am I investing my time? Why am I investing my energy? And like, why does this like bring me happiness? And always consistently asking the question. And like, if I can have some really good, solid answers, that is always something that is, I guess you could say, important to me. And helps give me clarity. This is very interesting because just coming from this concept of like ikigai or like having your why or anything of that nature, I know now like you're in the process of, well, you have your own business, the Taco Tainer, and like, you know, as you told me beforehand, you started it like in that kind of at the beginning of the pandemic era, and you saw this as a potential opportunity. So like, can you give a little bit around what that why is that made you decide to do it? Because you were already here in Washington living like your independent contractor life and like all that was kind of good. But like you saw this other opportunity and like you went for it. So like, I guess the question is like, why did you do that?
Well, I have lots of ideas of different concepts and things that I want to do eventually in my life. And Talk Container was one of them. I came up with it maybe like 5 years ago. I came up with the name and then the concept, and I had plans and drawings, and I trademarked the name a long time ago. And I guess I didn't really have a plan to execute it and bring it to life. But as the pandemic started, my Airbnb stopped operating. Hawaii was very strict at that time. Hawaii prohibited the operations of all Airbnbs. The travel to the islands was cut off. So I was realizing that was coming to an end, and then I was also seeing that a lot of people that I did graphic design work for were not reaching out to me anymore. So everybody kind of put things on hold. And then I was looking around me, and I was realizing the only places that are operating are stores and restaurants. I was like, hey, I had an idea for a restaurant. That's a business that will always do great, no matter what happens.
Yeah.
And also following the Ikigai, there's a lot of things that I realized that I could do to make money. But then one question that I asked myself, will I enjoy the process? And if I'm not going to enjoy the process, and even if I'm going to make a lot of money, it's like I'm wasting my life. So with cooking, I've always loved doing that. So that's something that I do on my off time. I love following complex recipes, creating my own recipes. I love plating. I love plate art. I love spending time in the kitchen. So plus I find the design of the concept very fulfilling, and the entire building and putting it all together and figuring it out, and permits, and learning how to build a commercial kitchen, and learning how that business operates, and having my own self-ordering system, and having automating everything, making it aesthetically pleasing. And so plus tacos is my favorite street food. So I just had to put it all together. And the time was ripe. It was the beginning of the pandemic. Nobody knew what was going to happen. But I was realizing that if I have that business, at least if another pandemic happens, I can continue making money doing something that that is lucrative and something that I enjoy. So that's how I went into that project.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I kind of want to pull back a little bit and go and talk about how you leverage like your office manager experience into this component as well, because, as you mentioned beforehand, even with the glass house experience, like there's a lot of components that go into it. It's not just saying like, oh, I want to build a glass house. And so you go to the glass house store, you tell them what kind of glass house you want, and then they put it there. And I'm sure it's the same thing for like the taco container as well. Like you didn't say, oh, I want a taco container, so like I'm gonna go to the container store, they're gonna build it out how I want it, and then I'm gonna plop it right here. I think that there's a lot of intentionality that goes into it, and a lot of creativeness as well. And then from like the office manager perspective, there's a lot of processes that you need to understand and the steps that you need to follow to get to that point. So like, I guess a question that I have is, how did you go about not only just learning the processes, but like tracking the steps and following that? Because there's not necessarily a script for it. And so you had to create your own script for it, just like as you're creating your own narrative for your freedom. So like how did you go about creating that kind of script to be able to create these visions specifically for the taco container?
I think, and as you're talking about this, I'm realizing that something that I haven't even really put together myself is that my past experiences do help me create or work on my next future projects. I never thought of it that way. I just thought that, I had free time, so I did this. But I guess it all ties in together. I would say that something that I realized also very late in life that I should have had in my head since I was like 5 is that confidence is at the center of everything. So the way I go about it usually is if I don't have the confidence, I avoid doing something. I so having the previous experiences with work and projects and people I've met, the inspirations I've had, I think that all adds to the confidence. And then if I check to see if I'm ready and I feel confident, I move forward with it. But I think also the confidence portion is something that would help anyone delve into what they really want to do, and I guess figuring out what is it that you need to do to have that confidence, because that confidence will take you places.
Yeah.
And I mean, I personally struggle with it. I don't think I have enough of it. I always question things, and but another thing that helps me is that and I don't know where I have that from, but I know that everything can be figured out, everything can be resolved. So whenever I approach something, even if a solution doesn't exist, I don't know why, I just believe that I can figure it out.
Yeah.
So I just I think that really helps me. So I can sit in front of a blank sheet of paper and think about something for like a day or two or three until I figure it out. So I tend to do that. So I think that is part of it.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it's something natural. Maybe it's something learned, and I just haven't made the connection to where it comes from. With maybe it is being from Eastern Europe, because you have to figure out a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe seeing my parents, my grandparents, and just observing.
No, that makes a lot of sense, man. So, you know, just as you were talking about this, like being from Eastern Europe component, I think that, you know, where you come from, like, no matter if it's like a different part of the world, a different part of like the country, or even like a different part of a city, like if there's always this experiences of not necessarily the haves and the have nots, but like experiences people who things that people experience and things that people don't. And so like from being in Eastern Europe, like you didn't get to experience like some of the things that people were experiencing in America. Just like I, for myself, like you talking about an exchange program, like I know that they have them in America and people go to like, I know people who've gone to like France and like Great Britain or like mostly Western European countries, but I know people who've gone to like Africa and even had jobs where they get to travel the world and things of that nature. And I'm just always like, how did they do that? How is that something that's possible? And like, you know, it came from just those experiences of saying like, oh, I saw it and I saw that it was possible for one person to do it. And so like I tried to, for lack of a better term, remix that experience and make it into my own. So I think that, you know, this is a really great pivot into like the last thing that I kind of want to talk to you about is really this kind of full circle experience. How, you know, one of the things that you and I've talked about is your interest of moving back home to Moldova and like being able to just, you know, even though your dad said you can't come back.
Well, I guess I could come back. I'm just not going to work with him.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like you could come back, but it's just like you can't work with him and things. So it's just like, how do I be able to come back home and like but like not have to be able to work for my dad? And I think what you've done is created a lot of several different experiences for that. And like even when you get there, like you're going to be able to probably create your own businesses there for whatever you decide what you would want to do. So I think really the question is, it's just like going back home. Is this something that you've kind of always kind of yearned for? Or is this something that has been recent that like that connection to be able to go back home has kind of become more of a burning desire? And so you've kind of been like strategically thinking about how you can get back to home and regain or relive some of those experiences? Or is it something that like just became just with all the different experiences that a lot of people are experiencing right now? Like, for example, myself, like I've had a yearn to go back to Mississippi and be closer to my family because I've realized the importance of not only like with being away from home, like the importance of being closer to home. if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, of course. And past couple of years also make you think about family and the most important things in your life, and not being able to travel and go see them, and actually like physically not being able to do that because the world just shuts down.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the desire to be closer to what's important for me. There's been times that I was planning trips back home, and my flights, one after another, kept getting canceled. And so to get to where I'm from, you have to take 2, 3 plane rides. So 2 if you're lucky. Usually it's 3.
Yeah.
And aligning those 3 flights and making sure that each one of those airlines doesn't cancel their flight due to the pandemic was challenging for some times, and it made me feel like, hey, I am really far away. I felt the same way in Hawaii too, but I was younger and I felt like I was exploring and living my life of adventure. And I think age is another factor. I think also realizing that as comfortable as I am here, I'm always gonna be an outsider, and having the opportunity to be home, where I'm from, where I belong, in a sense, is an important thing.
Yeah.
Some people don't have that luxury. Some people cut their ties entirely and they cannot move back. So, and I do have lots of other projects that I always wanted to do home.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just gonna flip through that book of ideas and bring something else to life. I've always wanted to open up a wine bar. I love wine, and as surprising as it is in the country that is all about wine, there is very few good wine bars. So I think that that's something that I would want to do.
Yeah.
And find an old cellar, remodel it, run it, and bring my passion to life as it comes to that.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, man. I think that one of the things that you mentioned of like not being an outsider, like, you know, I don't necessarily know what your experience in America has been like, but like for you to been here since you were basically 16, I'm sure it wasn't an experience that was so bad where you were like, I'm done with this, I'm leaving. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think outsider was not the right way to put it. I've always been accepted and embraced.
Right.
It's just the fact that, outsider was definitely not the right thing to use because it kind of has a negative connotation to it.
Yeah.
What I meant more is the freedom to speak the language.
Yeah.
The things, the concepts, the values, everything is aligned. For example.
Yeah.
I mean, even though I've been heavily influenced by America and I'm very comfortable here, there's certain things that when you're a child, when you're growing up, lots of things are embedded in you and stay with you for the rest of your life. So no matter what you do or no matter where else you live, all those memories, they seem very sweet.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm after.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And like, I understood what you meant as far as like the outsider component, because I kind of can resonate with that. So like, just to kind of go with a metaphor to kind of elaborate on this point a little bit, I think of it kind of like a shirt. Like you can have a shirt that's a little bit too tight where it's like you feel uncomfortable and things of that nature. That's kind of like that negative connotation of being an outsider, right? Things just feel uncomfortable. However, you know, you can be in an environment where or have a shirt that fits exactly to you to a T, where it's tailor made and things of that nature. And like, I think for a lot of people, or like for the experiences that you're talking about, like that's the kind of outsider experience that you're having, where it's just like, yeah, I'm here, everything fits comfortably, so I can live with this. And like, as I kind of resonate for myself, even this weekend, I went to the car dealership to get my car serviced, and he was saying a word that like I knew what he was saying, but I was articulating it with my vernacular. And so like whenever I was repeating back to what he was saying, he didn't understand what I was talking about at all. And I was just like, I don't get, why don't you understand what I'm saying? But it was the first time that it resonated with me that like the way that I was speaking that particular word was not the same vernacular as far as the comprehension of like people in this area. And I've had a lot of experiences like that. Like even when I was in grad school, I'll be in class and like, oh yeah, I know the answer to that question. Raise my hand, say all this stuff, and my teacher will just look puzzled. It's like, am I not speaking English or what? Do you not understand? But like home is kind of like an oversized shirt where it's like obviously it fits because it's too big, but there's room to grow and there's like that comfort that you get into it. I think of oversized shirts are kind of like the shirts that people wear to go to bed in, the shirts, the clothes that people wear when they're lounging around, things that make them feel a little bit more comfortable or a little bit more safe, where it's just like beautiful. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's why I resonate with that whole thing of, as you saying, going back home and that sweetness of the experiences that you've had there, because it's kind of like that oversized shirt. You have not only your family there, you also have familiar experiences and like a culture that, you know, has been embedded into you. So it's just like, you know, it's home, obviously. And now as a adult, you've had all these experiences that you can like build upon that lets you or allows you to even grow in like your home. And I think that's the best part of like an oversized shirt. This is where this kind of like metaphor ends, because it's like, you know, if I'm wearing 2Xs and I'm supposed to be wearing a large, I don't want to grow to where I start wearing 2Xs comfortably. But I think that being able to be in a space that you have that extra level of comfortability really allows an individual to not only just feel comfortable and be in that kind of retirement state, but also has the potential to like grow as well. So I guess like for you going into or planning for this next phase in your life of returning home, what is the growth that you want to see for yourself while you're there before you go into that true retirement state?
That was a very beautiful metaphor, and it is. That's exactly how it is. I think it's the desire to always analyze myself, and we feel as if we're so multi-layered, complex, and diverse characters with so many ideas and dreams and goals. But sometimes when it comes to articulating them, and as they come out from the comfort of our head, they feel different, they seem different. And that's why it's important to speak and communicate and share ideas. And I think that sharing something with people, sometimes I feel like it might take away from the uniqueness of the idea, but I really think that it polishes it. And these experiences where you sort of you put yourself from the comfort of your head into the real world, that's the only way that you can figure out how that really is going to feel. So I can probably live here in Seattle for the next 10 years constantly dreaming of going back home, but I will not know how that's going to feel unless I really do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's another thing that I really want to do, because if I feel like I'm gonna miss this place, I might be back.
Yeah.
And but in order to find out, I gotta go home.
Yeah. No.
And I think that way with a lot of things in life. So like, if I always kept the tuck container idea in my mind, I would have never known what it's like to run a taco truck. Same thing with the glass pyramid. And I think certain experiences that I really want to make part of my life, I just have to sacrifice everything else and run with them and make them happen. And then, when I'm ready to experience something new, I move on to that.
Yeah.
And I think as far as that goes, it's a trait maybe unique to me, because it's probably not the safest route to take. It's lots of risks involved. And sometimes I also feel like if you really want to be successful in life, you really have to stick to one thing. The hardest thing is figuring out what that one thing is. Some people are fortunate to somehow, by magic, stumble upon that thing when they're very young.
Yeah.
And others others don't. So I think it's also important when you realize that what you're doing is not something that makes you feel fulfilled, and you always keep dreaming and falling asleep thinking about something else. Maybe that's a sign.
Yeah.
Trust your intuition, trust your gut.
No, that makes a lot of sense, man. And I really appreciate you just sharing that, because it's just like, I think this is something that a lot of people can resonate with. And like, I know it's definitely something that I truly resonate with, and like, really enjoy just having this kind of conversation with you, because not only have I just learned, but I think that just this whole concept of the podcast, where I say like expand your pond, just hearing about your experiences has really expanded my perspective on things. And like, I really feel like I've grown in like just this like 50-minute conversation that we've had. So I really appreciate that, man.
Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir. So I do have lightning questions that I usually go on at every single episode. So like, if you don't mind, I'll just go through those, and then we'll call it in then. How's that sound?
Absolutely.
Cool. What's your favorite relaxation or self-care activity?
I love cooking, but it's very important for me to avoid rushing. So I like when I can create and carve out time where I have no obligations, where I can just get lost in that moment. And sometimes I might be doing the simplest things. Like I might just be drinking coffee and staring out the window. I would wake up an hour earlier each morning just to allow myself that time to wake up, to drink a few cups of my favorite espresso and collect my thoughts, catch up with my friends and family. It sets my day right, and makes me feel connected and collected and ready to concentrate my mind on whatever else I'm going to tackle that day. So that's very important to me. And I also love to paint. I like getting lost in the layers and layers of colors, and setting my feelings and thoughts onto the canvas. And just I look at it as a form of catharsis. Because the way my mind works, I always have ideas and thoughts, and it's always like busy, and it's always so I feel like sometimes getting that out of myself really makes me feel clean and calm, and so that's what I like to do with my free time. I guess starting afresh, or doing things that, like an intense workout, sauna, something that makes you feel like you're taking a fresh breath. And
yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. What is your best book recommendation?
Complex question. I would recommend the book called Sapiens, if you really want to read something, and it's a book about humankind, but it's a very beautiful and very analytical book. But even more than a book, I would recommend everyone to watch. It's called Human the Movie. Yeah, but for those that are not familiar with it, I mean, go on YouTube. Human the Movie, and look through those series. And I personally think that should be made a part of the curriculum at schools. Anybody graduating middle school or even elementary school, definitely high school, needs to watch that movie and enter the world with that perspective in mind.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
I'm really glad that you're familiar with that one.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but it's life changing. Anybody who hasn't seen it, go see it.
No, I totally agree. And then lastly, one person that you want to thank for your journey thus far.
Well, that'll be my dad. So many things that he said that I did not want to hear. He did. He was that person that pushed me. He was that. He was that parent that I needed to have.
Yeah.
I guess in a way, he also made it okay for me to go explore the unexplored. Because sometimes parents can be protective, and that can be limiting. Yeah. So I got to thank him, because he not only did he support me and a lot of times financially support me to be able to attend university outside of state, country.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was also the fact that you can do it, you can figure it out. Or I wish more people had those kinds of people in their lives.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to dare.
Yeah.
It's hard to take risks. And if somebody tells you it's okay, it almost kind of takes away that you're not really liable if you mess up.
Yeah.
Because somebody told you it's okay to try.
Yeah. Usually, you know, man, I try to refrain from like responding to people's answers when they're going through the lightning questions. But like, I gotta say this one. I think that it makes a lot of sense for you to say that your father is the person that you want to thank for your journey thus far, because he has that confidence in you, right? Like you mentioned earlier, as far as confidence being the center of everything, and like it's not necessarily hard, but it's not often that people are born with that innate skill of having confidence in themselves from when they just start off into the world and just can go and do great things. A lot of times that's confidence is something that is built, but it's even better when it's nurtured into you. And so I think for, as you mentioned, your father instilled a lot of confidence into you. So like giving you that ability to say like, oh yeah, I believe that you can go and do it and go into another country and be successful. Even with that challenge of saying like, you can't come back and work for me, like that showcases that he had a lot of confidence in yourself and you. And so like, having confidence in yourself is something that you had at least a good foundation to build yourself on. So that makes a lot of sense to me, man.
Yeah, and I think for anybody that is becoming parents, and when I become a parent,
Yeah.
I think that's something that I'm going to carry over with me into that journey.
Yeah. No, for sure.
For others, I think also you can be your own parent sometimes, and I think that's something that you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing I like to live by is being the person I needed when I was younger.
Yes.
So that thing kind of goes through my head a lot of times. And,
No, that makes a lot of sense, man. I live by that as well. Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate you being on the show, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, brother.
All right.
Thank you.
This has been another episode of Don't Be Coy with Unkle Lew. As always, I'd like to thank this episode's guest for a great conversation, as well as thank you, the listener, for joining in. Whether you're a first-time listener or a regular, I always appreciate your support. If you like today's episode and ever want to listen to more, subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts, Audible, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. And to join our community and access future bonus content, be sure to visit dbkpodcast.com.